Hello and welcome to Ag PhD. I'm Brian Hefty.
And I'm Darren Hefty. Thanks for joining us today. One of the things that we're thinking about coming into this spring is what kind of disease pressure year is it going to be? Today we're specifically going to talk about leaf diseases in wheat.
One of the interesting things as we've come into 2020 has been the incredible amount of rebate programs that there are out there. Today we want to talk about one specifically. Bayer Plus has garnered a tremendous amount of attention. We want to discuss why on today's show.
2020 is certainly looking to be a good year for our Weed of the Week as well. We'll show you how to get this one under control on your farm. But first, here's our farm basics.
Corn we planted early February have all good emergence. So far, we can't find any condition that the wheels haven't worked. I can just say that.
Closing the seed trench behind the planter is essential to establishing yields in the fall. Introducing the Germinator Closing Wheel from Farm Shop MFG. Designed and built by a farmer who is tired of seeing poor stands because of uneven emergence, the Germinator is here to give your crop the strong start it needs for maximum yield. For more information, visit us at farmshopmfg.com.
During our Farm Basics time today, we're going to talk about something that pretty much every farmer at one point or another has used. It is a compatibility agent.
I want to start right here. So we're speaking about something that you say, what in the world? Compatibility with what? When farmers are spraying things over their fields, they'll oftentimes put 2 or 3 things in because they don't want to have to drive across the field so many times, but sometimes those 2 or 3 things don't mix. And it brings me back into an issue that I had back home with my kids. They wanted to mix up some Kool-Aid. Well, they wanted that Kool-Aid to be really cold. So they put ice in the water and the water was just freezing cold. Well, what do you think the Kool-Aid mix did? Well, it didn't mix at all. When you have cold water, oftentimes you just have mixing issues. And what I'm talking about here is for farmers, there are lots of things they could throw in the tank. I made a comment of 2 or 3 things. It may be 6 or 7 things in the tank. And if one of those or more than one don't mix at all, well, that's going to be a problem.
And here's the thing. Most of these products are designed by scientists to mix in water. They're not designed to mix in water plus something else. So what ends up happening is when farmers start throwing in these 6 or 7 things, which we often do on our farm, if that's not done in the proper order with the right water and everything goes exactly perfectly, then you can end up with what we refer to as sludge or cottage cheese in the tank. That is not a good thing.
Well, it's one thing if you have this gunk or this buildup in your spray tank, but a sprayer has a tank that's hooked up to lines that run out to individual spray nozzles. And now when you think about cleaning all of that system out, it's really time consuming, not to mention the loss of the product that you had in the tank.
So these compatibility agents, they can be added either before a farmer has a problem or after the farmer starts to see things going wrong. The product we've been talking about a lot the last couple of years is named Convert. That's from Precision Labs, but there are many different compatibility agents out there. So whether you're a farmer or a non-farmer, if you ever start mixing more than one thing together, not just the one plus water, but more than one thing together in that spray tank, we always encourage you have at least a jug or 2 of compatibility agent around.
Well, one thing you don't want to have around is our Weed of the Week. Can you identify this week's weed?
Find love, and then give it all away. Find love, then give it all away.
Tired of that old warped poly boom ruining your spray applications? Express Boom from Hypro is a fully assembled stainless steel boom that ensures an even application of chemicals every time. Don't wait another season, upgrade today. Hypro, helping you spray better.
Success isn't just about maintaining your operation, how you make out for the season, or how much you can get from each acre. It's about doing precisely what needs to be done to feed your crop and grow your legacy, all the way down to the last drop. AgroLiquid Precision Crop Nutrition. Apply less. Expect more. Find a retailer at agroliquid.com.
Why do I farm? It's just something I've always wanted to do. Something I've known since I was my daughter's age. When you farm, you have a responsibility to keep it growing. To look at a freshly planted field, a newborn calf, even your bottom line, then ask yourself, how do I help this grow? How can I make it even more productive? I ask myself these questions every day because no matter what I'm doing, I'm still a farmer.
Introducing the all-new Diamant Cornhead from Capello, USA. With a revolutionary design highly innovative for its class, we have painstakingly designed every component down to the smallest detail to maximize your harvest efficiency. This gives you unprecedented standards in operation and performance. For more information about this beast, available only in our new gray poly, call 855-CAPELLO or visit capellousa.com to find a dealer near you. Capello, wherever you are, we are.
So going into 2020, both Darren and I thought, you know what? We're going to see a little bit of an increase in terms of crop protection product costs because there were tariffs. Well, we also had increasing overall costs in terms of manufacturing, and the thing wasn't looking very good. But what ended up happening is a lot of the big name companies came out with massive rebate programs, in part because their sales just were not very good in 2019. The biggest rebate program this year, and the biggest rebate program, quite frankly, we have ever seen in agriculture, is from Bayer. It's called Bayer Plus. We wanted to run through the details of that with you just a little bit today.
One thing that you didn't mention there, Brian, was that there are so many mergers and acquisitions that happened over the past few years that some of these companies, like Bayer, for example, who bought out Monsanto, they've got some shiny new toys to play with here and products that they could pair up that they've never had the chance to before.
Plus the fact that Valent threw a lot of their products into this particular program. So really the way the program works, it's fairly simple. If you buy one product, you get no rebates. If you buy two, then you get $3. Three, you get $3 on that third product. 4, you get $4 on that one product, on the fourth product by itself. And then if you buy a fifth product, that's $5. So theoretically, if you bought 5 products on an acre, on a single acre, that's $15 an acre rebate that you could get.
Well, a lot of times we'll have farmers say, those rebates are for the big farmers. This isn't just for the big farmer. This is for the small farmer too. I was just thinking about, wow, if you had 1,000 acres of crop ground, that could be $15,000, or 500 acres of crop ground, that could be $7,500 on products that you're probably using anyway, or using something very similar to.
Yep, but here's the way I like to look at it. If I can cut my chemical costs by 20% or 30%, now I'm super interested. In addition to having those 5 different products, you can match each one of those products up to Roundup and get $2 off that. So in effect, you can buy your Roundup for half price and buy it for equivalent of 5 acres worth if you are buying 5 different Bayer products. And for me, that's the thing that I have been most excited about. And I've even gone so far as to say, what would be wrong with buying 5 years worth of Roundup, buying 5 quarts of Roundup? If I can get that rebate money, I can buy it for half price, cheaper than even any generic has been in history.
Well, you're right about that, Brian, but it does kind of concern me a little bit because I think farmers get thinking about this as, well, it's a herbicide program. No, it's not just a herbicide rebate program. There are also fungicides in there, and good ones like Delaro and Prosaro and Stratego Yield. There's some excellent products there. There's insecticides on here as well. So it's really across the whole gamut of crop protection.
Yeah, as Darren mentions that, we talk about herbicides all the time here on the show, but usually it's the fungicide that's your very last decision you're going to make during the summer, where you say, okay, I got everything else done. Should I spray a fungicide or should I not? And usually how it ends up for us on our farm is we go, well, we've spent a lot of money and fungicides are expensive. I don't know if I want to do it. So I just had my notes here on if, let's just say, for example, you'd already bought 4 Bayer products. Now you're going to buy a 5th. What would that end up costing if it's your 5th product? Well, the full rate of, Darren mentioned Delaro, $7. The full rate of Stratego Yield, $4. I mean, really super crazy inexpensive at the end, and that's where I think a lot of people are going to jump into this thing. Now, as we're talking about hey, all these rebates that Bayer has, we just want to make sure you understand a lot of other companies have rebate programs too. Corteva does. FMC has massive rebates. We told you already, Valent is in on this program. There are a lot of rebates that you should look at, and then you can also say, well, how about the companies that don't have a lot of rebate programs? BASF cut some of their rebates, but they dramatically reduced some of their pricing as well. So either way, I don't really care as a farmer. I just want my products to be less expensive, and they definitely are in a lot of cases here in 2020.
Well, there are some fantastic rebate programs. You definitely want to talk to your ag retailer about them to see how it fits for you. And as we've mentioned, this one ties in your third, fourth, and fifth particular option, which could cover your whole crop protection gamut and save you a considerable amount of money for your farm.
Yeah, but keep in mind, there are a lot of other rebate programs out there too. We by no means are trying to influence you to say, hey, use all these Bayer products. We don't care what you use. We just want to make sure that you're aware of the different programs that are out there from every company so you can get the best possible deal this year on your crop protection products.
And unfortunately, you may need that really good deal if you have to control our Weed of the Week. We'll give you some great options coming up later in the show.
Challenging field conditions often make harvest difficult. Can your corn head handle it? The GTS X10 corn head from Agra US is a rugged, cost-effective alternative to heavier, more traditional heads. Constructed of durable yet lightweight aluminum, the X10 puts less strain on your combine without losing harvest effectiveness. And it is 40% lighter than traditional heads, reducing field compaction in those less than ideal conditions. For more information, give us a call at 8334-AGRA US.
How much does your crop residue cost you? Over time, residue accumulates in your fields, building excess carbon levels and tying up your plant available nitrogen. Residue also traps P, K, and micros and can take years to naturally become available to your crops. This is because soil lacks the diverse microbial life needed to break it all down. With Decomp, you can naturally restore life to your soil and allow the release of valuable crop fertility. Learn more about Decomp at eggbio.solutions.
More choices, more money. With Bayer Plus Rewards, you choose from our broad portfolio of high-performance products. Earn more money on the eligible products that are right for your farm. And use our new portal to see your purchases, track your rewards, and decide how you want to use them. Visit mybayerplus.com to sign in and start earning. That's the advantage of more control in your hands. That's the plus.
Where we have run the Soil Warrior, we have harvested the best corn we have ever harvested in the history of Wrenwood Farms. Now, I'm kind of always wanting to push the envelope to see what else I can do to help enhance that emergence. Their ride is so much smoother. Their seed placement is even better. Where we had our best emergence and we've had our best yields was where we ran the Soil Warrior.
Success isn't just about maintaining your operation, how you make out for the season, or how much you can get from each acre. It's about doing precisely what needs to be done to feed your crop and grow your legacy, all the way down to the last drop. AgroLiquid Precision Crop Nutrition. Apply less, expect more. Find a retailer at agroliquid.com.
Today we're going to spend a little time talking about leaf diseases in wheat, and it really depends on the time of year when we see some of these diseases out there. So for example, very early on in the year it's tan spot. Very late in the year we see a lot more rust species. But whatever the case, whatever the disease is, what we really care about is it profitable to spray a fungicide? And that's what we really want to get into today.
All right, let's start right from the beginning then, Brian, and start with early season issues. You mentioned tan spot right away, and we see it so frequently across wheat fields. It's almost like I just have to look a little bit harder and I'm for sure going to find it out there. So oftentimes farmers are putting in a fungicide with that first herbicide pass, but I would just say this. If you've got a bad disease problem out there, don't wait. You want to be out in front of those diseases, and here's how these products work when we talk about fungicides. You'll hear about, well, there's preventative products and there's curative products. Let me just take that right off the table, because there aren't any of these fungicides that I would say, oh yeah, if I've got a big problem out in my field, they're going to cure it. So I don't like that term, curative. Yes, we can maybe stop a disease infection so it doesn't get worse, but once that damage is done, we can't undo it. So the big thing here when we're talking about leaf diseases is you have to be out in front of them with your fungicide application.
Which creates a real problem, because how do you know if you're going to have a bad disease issue or not? Yes, you can look at history. Yes, you can look at the weather, and you can also say, I have more susceptible varieties versus some others that may be a little more resistant to certain diseases. But you can throw all that out the window, because no one really knows if you're going to have a disease for sure or not. So when you go into each growing season, you just have to ask yourself, all right, are the odds fairly high that I'm going to have an issue? And what I really care about is, over time, if I was to do this, let's say every year, would it pay on average to treat with a fungicide?
And Brian, like we're talking about this first application of fungicide, and we'll move on to a little bit bigger wheat as well. But with that first application, we want to have really good coverage. And if you're also mixing a herbicide in the tank, now you got a few different things going on here. Well, what do I need for spray coverage for that herbicide that I'm putting out there? Maybe I'm a little concerned about drift, so I have to use some drift reduction nozzles. All of a sudden we've got big droplets landing on tiny little leaves out there for your wheat plants. That's not going to give you great coverage, so you aren't going to get the best out of your fungicide. So do talk about that with your retailer as well. Which nozzles are going to work for my tank mix?
Yeah, but the good news, Darren, is we don't have a lot of the major drift issues in wheat that we would in, say, soybeans, where you're going to spray dicamba and it's the middle of the summer. Most of the time in wheat, the products do like and do work a little better when we have more water, a little higher spray pressure, a little smaller droplet, so that fits right into exactly what you're talking about for the best performance with fungicides. And when we talk about fungicides, just understand, because they only move in the xylem of the plant, which only moves upward, you can never have that fungicide protecting anything lower on the plant than where you physically get the spray. So that's why coverage is so important.
Hey Barry, one other thing too, I should mention, and we kind of started with this herbicide application timing. I should have mentioned the seed treatment, because we do see some early season disease prevention with that seed treatment fungicide, especially with some of the advanced ones now where we're putting multiple modes of action right on the seed. So we do have a little window of time there that we rarely see a disease problem if you're using a seed treatment. Then we come back in with this herbicide application, oftentimes at just a half rate of most fungicides, because we've got such a small plant that we're dealing with. But as those plants get bigger, we need to use stronger rates of product to get good disease prevention.
So usually we do say at herbicide timing, throw a fungicide in there. You can use a low rate. There are many low rates approved, labeled, no problem with that. They have good efficacy. And you know, when you're only talking $2 to $5 an acre, not a real big expense. And you're already out there making a trip with the herbicide, so it's not like you have a whole bunch of expense. $2 to $5 extra dollars, most of the time that's going to pay. Just think about your thick stand of wheat, all the moisture it traps down there. You're undoubtedly going to have at least some disease pressure. We would really encourage you, try that timing. Now the next timing for spraying is usually flag leaf, and that's the most important leaf to protect on that plant. I would say when you look at a lot of the university trials, that's when they show the best yield gain from spraying a fungicide. But let's keep in mind, now you're going to use a full rate, so you're going to spend more on the fungicide, and you probably have to make a separate application, so you've got the cost of the application too. So in total, the cost of that trip is going to be significantly more than the cost of the first trip.
Now, the good thing is when we look at all the diseases that we're seeing out there, and I'd include stripe rust in this too, Brian, I think that's one of the biggest ones that we're after, trying to control. We've got to use multiple modes of action, and if we do, we're able to control most diseases that we're seeing in wheat in the United States. Now, in other parts of the world, there are some diseases that are a little tougher to control that we're not getting with the current products that we have available on the market. But in the United States, we've had really good luck using products that have 2 to 3 modes of action, spraying them foliar on the wheat, and just focusing on getting good coverage to prevent disease outbreaks.
So we talked about herbicide timing, flag leaf timing, and then the final timing is heading. And usually this is at early flowering when we encourage people to spray. It's just a little bit different than the other two timings. You can't just use anything. You want to avoid the strobilurin products, things like headline, Quadris, Evito, for example, at heading timing, because when those products get sprayed, we see a higher incidence of DON. Basically, we're getting more toxins introduced into that plant because of the spraying of the strobilurin at that point. So avoid the strobes when you're spraying late.
Yeah, we're typically using triazoles and even SDHIs at that point, but we're looking for two things. Yes, the fusarium head blight is one. The other one is rust. And we've got some excellent rust products in the triazole family that we're using late in the season.
Once again, when it comes to the different leaf diseases in wheat, we're not necessarily so concerned about your identification of these diseases, although that would be super nice. But more than anything, what we want is for you to figure out, hey, is this going to pay or is it not? You have to look a little bit at the weather, susceptible varieties, everything else, and run trials on your own farm. And then just basically ask yourself, is this going to pay over time? On our farm, we have found we absolutely are spraying at all the 3 timings that we mentioned to you, at herbicide, at flagleaf, and at heading. We found that on average, each one of those pays. There are lots of new products. We'd encourage you to use multiple modes of action so you can control the diseases out there without worrying about resistance. And ultimately, hopefully, you're making a little more yield and some more profit on your farm.
Well, one thing that you'll be looking for out in many of those same fields is our Weed of the Week. We'll show you how to stop it coming up next.
The Weed of the Week is brought to you by Corteva Agriscience, Agriculture Division of Dow DuPont. Finish the fight against tough weeds with the Enlist Weed Control System.
Weeds are tough, but we're tougher. With unrivaled weed control, reduced drift, and near zero volatility. So, who's tough now?
Our Weed of the Week is field pennycress.
It's also known by some other names, Brian. Fanweed is one I hear quite a bit, and the one that I like is stinkweed because this plant smells really bad. I don't like going in fields that have lots of pennycress. I can tell just as soon as I open the door on my truck, oh, there's pennycress out there because it smells that bad.
All right, so this is a winter annual, which means your best control is usually if you spray in the fall, because by the time you get to it in the spring, which you might be facing right now, this weed is usually big and strong.
Well, it's not like there aren't good herbicide options for control, Brian. It's just the timing about it.
Right.
People don't like to do those fall treatments. They're busy with harvest and all these other things. But if you're doing some tillage out in the field, you have done your fall application. You've wiped out the pennycress before it got started. That's great. But if you're in a no-till or reduced-till situation, it can be a real challenge coming into spring.
Okay, so let's talk about wheat. What's your best suggestion pre and post in wheat?
Well, I like sharpen pre and I like husky post.
Okay, how about soybeans?
In soybeans, you've got a lot of options. I like our 3 pre-program down and then coming back post-emerge. Well, if you've got Roundup or Liberty in the tank, you're going to do a great job getting it under control.
Or certainly 2,4-D or dicamba. How about corn?
Well, in corn, that's easy as well. I like Verdict down and then coming back in crop with Status.
Okay, then we get to shelter belts. That's where we used to see pennycress all the time on our farm. What do you suggest around trees?
Oh, boy,
Right.
that's a tough one. You got to do the fall treatment. After the trees drop their leaves, that's the best time to do it. Get out there with the fall treatment. You could even use something like 2,4-D. If you've got the new 2,4-D choline, if that's available, that would be awesome, because you aren't going to have the drift issues you would with the old 2,4-Ds.
Well, that's it for our Weed of the Week field pennycress, but stay tuned. Iron Talk is coming up next.
Do you feel like there's never enough time to get everything done before planting? The window for spring work is quick and unforgiving. Give yourself the upper hand with the Protel High Performance High Speed Disc. More and more farmers agree the Protel is the right tool for springfield conditions and heavy residue management. Zero maintenance bearings, independent disc technology, oversized pins and bushings allow the Protel to handle whatever field or conditions you can throw at it. Degelman High Performance Equipment.
It's no secret that Mother Nature doesn't always cooperate with your schedule. Field conditions in recent years kept many from timely planting and fertilizing, and when you can't get your fertilizer applied, you lose thousands of dollars in yield potential. If you need flexibility in your fertility application timing, you need a drop tube system from C&R Supply. C&R drop tubes allow you to apply liquid nitrogen in season and place it exactly where your crop needs it. To learn more about low-cost C&R drop tube solutions, visit crsupply.com.
More choices, more money. With Bayer Plus Rewards, you choose from our broad portfolio of high-performance products. Earn more money on the eligible products that are right for your farm. And use our new portal to see your purchases, track your rewards, and decide how you want to use them. Visit mybayerplus.com to sign in and start earning. That's the advantage of more control in your hands. That's the plus.
How much does your crop residue cost you? Over time, residue accumulates in your fields, building excess carbon levels and tying up your plant available nitrogen. Residue also traps P, K, and micros and can take years to naturally become available to your crops. This is because soil lacks the diverse microbial life needed to break it all down. With Decomp, you can naturally restore life to your soil and allow the release of valuable crop fertility. Learn more about Decomp at eggbio.solutions.
If you're looking to expand your farm's grain handling, you want everything to be fast and efficient. The Quick Belt from Norwood Sales is your all-around grain handling solution. Our conveyor-based system uses an 18-inch belt and a 10-inch tube, which minimizes seed damage while moving more than 10,000 bushels an hour. That's fast enough to fill a semi in 6 minutes. Plus, our hood is designed to gently direct the flow of grain straight down, keeping your crop in condition. Keep your grain and your farm moving with the Quick Belt from Norwood Sales.
Iron Talk is brought to you by Case IH.
Why do I farm? It's just something I've always wanted to do. Something I've known since I was my daughter's age. When you farm, you have a responsibility to keep it growing. To look at a freshly planted field, a newborn calf, even your bottom line, then ask yourself, how do I help this grow? How can I make it even more productive? I ask myself these questions every day because no matter what I'm doing, I'm still a farmer.
One of the more popular new concepts in tillage is the high-speed disc. We'll talk about some things you should look for in today's Iron Talk. High-speed discs are being used in the fall and in the spring. If you're using one on your farm, chances are the fields afterwards have looked really good on the surface. These tools can create a pretty nice seed bed and also deal with residue well. There are two big distinguishing features between brands to watch for. First, how the machine is constructed in terms of durability, functionality, and simplicity to adjust. Second, the tillage floor that the machine creates. You want to find a machine that is constructed to be as strong as possible to handle the tough conditions in your fields. Compacted and hard soils along with heavy residue situations can lead to variable performance of a high-speed disc. One thing we like about the Case IH Speed Tiller is it has the heaviest disc arms on the market, nearly double the thickness of competitive units. It was also among the easiest to set and adjust with a single-point depth adjustment for both machine depth and level. In addition to making a fantastic seed bed and handling residue, this feature allows you to achieve what I believe is the real differentiator between high-speed discs on the market: a flat tillage floor. A tilled field can look great on the surface, but it can be a mess underneath. Sweep away the light, fluffy soil on top to see what kind of tillage floor you're dealing with. The fatal flaw with many high-speed discs is that they can leave compacted valleys and humps between where the blades run. This leads to uneven emergence and lost yield that you can never make up for. High-speed discs can be great tools. Just make sure that you find one that's built heavy, easy to set and adjust, and leaves not only a great seed bed on the surface, but a flat, even tillage floor below. That's all for today's Iron Talk, and now back to the show.
That's all the time we have for today's show, but before we go, we would encourage you to check out the Ag PhD Insider magazine. You'll find a lot of great agronomic advice in that magazine. Just go to agphdinsider.com.
And don't miss the next Ag PhD TV show. We'll have another Weed of the Week, Farm Basics, Iron Talk, and a whole lot more. I'm Darren Hefty.
And I'm Brian Hefty. Thanks for watching Ag PhD.